back and discuss some feeds and speeds in a little bit.
But that's feed right there, right? Under feed rate is feed.
Feed per tooth.
Oh,
That's your
per
chip
tooth.
load.
Okay.
That's your chip load. So we got feed rate. This is plunge rate. This is your rapid. I always like to check the rapids and make them something controllable and consistent. That way you don't scare the guy that's running it. You have this up at 60 inches a minute and it comes in on your part hot, right?
So everything you should realize everything as inches.
Oh, good point. We kind of went right by that, but right in the beginning when we choose a machine, we can have an opportunity to set units, whether it's metric or English.
Oh, okay.
Typically we click on default so we get a English system built up.
Oh, default go to English.
Yeah, standard.
Standard.
So we'll come back to this a little bit here in a minute, but so you can get very detailed about the design of the tool, the length, the holder, stick out of holder, length out of holder, and different things like that. Typically, I skip right by that. If you're in a job shop, this will change a lot. The things you're going to want to have as notable information is maybe tool out of holder length or flute length. Flute length is going to depend on how deep of a cut you can make. Tool out of holder length might have to deal with what kind of clearances you have over clamps and such. Okay, so those are a couple key points of information. Again, you can define a lot of this. We're going to skip over that. Cut parameters. This is where we can fine tune across and along, and I get them mixed up all the time, but basically this is how much across it overlaps and how much along it overlaps, so that it's facing, so it's going to overlap a little bit so that it cuts the whole face. And I pretty much go with defaults at this time unless I see something that indicates otherwise. Here we have climb cut, reverse direction of last pass. There's a lot of little things we can do to change it. Here's the style of cut. Right now it's that one way. Maybe we want to do zigzag. Look at that. Now, ready for the bonus round? Zigzag or one way? Which is a better finish?
One way.
Why?
Because it's going to be all going one way.
Right, so all the dynamics are the same direction. The nicest finish that you can achieve by making multiple passes is right here, making a pass up over, making a pass up over. Now a little less efficient. So if you're trying to compete against everybody and their mama out there for this part, you got to kind of take that into consideration of maybe
Time.
I can achieve time, yeah. Maybe I can achieve a nice finish quality that'll meet the customer specifications, and I can choose, say for example, where to go? Zigzag. And just to see what we look at, that's what's dynamic look like. So dynamic's going to be a kind of a goofy circle. We don't understand, but if we go to
What's one pass?
a single pass right over the top. Now look what happened
Is
here.
that the size of your tool right there?
This gives me an idea of what our tool is. Remember we skipped right by the tool definition. Let's go back to where it sees the green check mark up here at tool.
Right.
And look at that. I went right by it, but it says up here 2-inch face mill. Well, we're not, that's no fun. So watch this. So out in this white area, I'm going to right click, and down here where it says tool manager, left click. You should have a window pop up, a tool manager window just like this.
Oh, okay. And you can select the tool.
Now, I'm going to show you a little bit more here. See this button that says filter? Left click of that filter. And then the button down here that says none, and you see all these windows just went gray. Now, you can hover above these little pictures and look for, what are we looking for? An end mill, a flat end mill, upper left corner. I'll click it once, and so the upper left-hand corner should be the only blue square. And then I'll click the check mark. And now when we look at our, and now, oh, I gotta do one more thing. I'm gonna activate our filter, this little square here, check that. Notice when I check mark the filter, with this turned off, I see a bunch of center drills here in the type column. If I turn on the filter, now I've got end mills. And if I click the diameter button, it will sort them by diameter. I'm looking for a 1/2 inch, which I just highlighted. Now we've got a couple of ginormous black arrow keys over here. We've got heaven and hell. Yeah, I just thought that up. Sorry. We're going to send it to we're going to use this one in our program that's highlighted. So we're going to transfer this information of this tool up into this box here. This is our tool path, our part tools that we're using. So we're going to send it up to here. Now we're just going to
tool manager. My box disappeared, so yeah.
Tool manager.
And then, how do you get it to move to the top there?
click on the black arrow key up.
This one?
Yep.
Oh.
There you go. And then go ahead and click on the green checkbox. Bottom right, green check.
So I click on the 1/2 inch flat end mill.
Yep, you click on this right here, and you click the black arrow key, and you should have one tool up here at the top
Okay.
for our tool paths.
So similar to flat end mill and green check.
Green check. Now when we come out, now we've got a tool in here. Now we've got a tool. And you notice over here, it says 1/2 inch now instead of that 2 inch. So if we come down here to cut parameters, we click something else, zigzag, and go back to one pass. Oh, it just still shows us, but you know, you can think about it, and if you do one pass with a 1/2 inch across the top of a 3 inch part, is that going to work? We'll get a groove, which is good if you wanted a groove, but not if you didn't. So one pass isn't going to work. But dynamic, remember we had that kind of lazy snail shell?
Yeah.
Well, we still do. But I thought it might show us a little bit more accurately what was happening here. It doesn't, so sorry. We'll leave that on there for a minute. The nice thing about dynamic is if you had a hat, say for example, if you were removing a hat off the top of a part, does that make sense what I'm saying? A hat? You had
Like a lump or something, some kind of.
your 203 project. Remember when you flipped your 203 project upside down in the program and we were going to cut the hat off?
Like a boss or something.
Yeah, well, not a boss. A boss would be if we had a plate
Oh, right there.
that had a raised area. This is a boss. But on your 203 project,
Oh, yeah.
the hat. So we want to remove the hat. The danger with removing the hat is if you slice off some of it, you might get a chunk of it flying away. It might jam up in the tool and chip. So it's kind of awkward to handle sometimes. But if we use dynamic, what that looks like is the tool will make a organic sort of movement so that the radial engagement is fairly consistent, but it will basically spiral in.
Oh.
So it'll take the material from the outside and come in. So you won't have to deal with the fact of when I run my end mill through here, what happens is this little piece there, that goes shooting off, it gets stuck in the conveyor or something. But let's just choose, how about zigzag? There we go. We're just gonna go back and forth. Now, down here, look what it says, leave material on floor. Now, we want to just take it to net. Make it 0.
Did you say 0?
0, make it 0.
What does that mean, though? Stock to leave on the floor.
Well, if this was a pocket, if this was, let me see, this is a facing maneuver. Maybe, let me think of something. So our part is here, and the top of this part has to be a very, very good finish. And it's very critical as far as dimensions and everything, so we don't want to go in there and just blow off a bunch of material and have it get all kinds of stress and ugliness about it, right? So you might create 2 tool paths. One tool path to rough it, and a second tool path to finish it. So one way you would do that is the first tool path would come through here and take most of it off, and the second tool path would come through and a little bit less and finish. So this might take off maybe maybe 100 or more. Maybe you've got a lot of material. And the finish pass, maybe 10 thousandths, 5 thousandths or something. Finish pass. You might even have a rough semi-finish and finish. By leaving stock on it, on this button, stock to leave on floor, what that means is we can go into our geometry in our picture and we can click on the geometry that we made and use that to define how deep it cuts. But we've said in the tool path, leave some material for the next tool. Does that make sense? A little bit? Okay. Yeah, so this is, you can leave material behind basically for future tools. You don't typically on official parts, that's the process. You're going to do some rough and finish. You're not going to come in and clean up one side to finish and then go rough and finish as you go. You're going to kind of whittle it down all together as much as possible. So, and then, you know, if we had a lot of material to take off, we could turn this section on, and this would give us depth of cuts. We leave it off for now.
What part was that? Where you?
See where it says depth of cut right underneath cut parameters?
Oh, okay.
So the little red circle with the line means it's turned off. I can turn it on, but I'm gonna leave it off. Now here's the fun one right here. Linking parameters. Always stop to take a look at this. Linking parameters. Go through and put all these columns at absolute. Turn on clearance. I like to run this in absolute. This is again called a personal selection. Again, different programmers will run it a little bit differently. Not necessarily wrong, it's just different. I like absolutes because I can tell pretty readily where the tool's at, given I know where the origin's at. And in this case, now I can type in my number. Now I know Z0 is my top, but I could also do this. I can click on the button that says depth, and I can click on top of that right there. It still says 0, but that's okay. And then I can do the same thing. Top of stock is also right there. So these first two are just zeros as is in this particular instance. My feed plane, if we go back to what we've handwritten in the past, our feed plane is our approach distance, which was typically 200. And in this case, when it retracts, if it was going to make more than one cut, the retract I would keep also at 200, being consistent with our programming methods when we did it by hand. What did we used to do for clearance, basically, by hand?
1 inch?
Yeah, inch above the part. And that's where we'll stop with this particular selection. Now there are lots of other things we can mess around with. I wouldn't mess around with the home or the reference points. I would leave them as default. If you do the orientation like I was talking about in the very beginning, where in the planes, everything's on the top looking down, all the construction lines are in the same orientation. We don't have to mess with this home and reference points. Or these planes, this button here. You can come over here and turn on coolant and such. There's different selections, but essentially you're going to want to open this up, select tools. You're going to select the tool to use for your cut. You're going to have a little description about what's going on. We'll come back later and we'll massage our feeds and speeds. But for now we're going to do tools, cut parameters, and that's where you get to just determine if you leave some stock behind or not. And then linking parameters. This linking parameters is very important. That's I have to stop by and look at it each time. Set these to absolute, depth of cut, top of stock, feed plane, and retract. Typically I'd put them at your 0.2 and then clearance at 1.
You want them all on absolute?
Yes, it's just, for me it's easier to track. You do see there's incremental and associative. So there's different ways of tracking it. Some guys like, using incremental or associative. If you had different heights of, if you had different depths of drilled holes, you could go maybe click one as a primary and associative for the rest of them so that it would drill at different depths for each hole. For me, since I've never programmed, I never was in the office 8 hours a day, 8 days a week thing, right? 8 days a week. I never was programming full time. It was always a multifunctional task. So if you get into a position like that, by all means, modify it and use the shortcuts and the customizations available to you to make your job a little bit more efficient. That's awesome. For me, I just kept it simple. I like a absolute. Now when I'm ready, we're done. Green check. And we have the yellow folder highlighted. Come up here where it says backplot and click on backplot. You hopefully have something similar to this.
Right click or left click?
Left.
Okay. Mine just did something. Warning, dirty operation.
Okay, so if you have in your tool, okay, click on the X up here for a second. When you look in your toolpath, if you have, and you have a red X on your toolpath, that means you need to regenerate it.
So click
You
on,
need to regenerate it, so click on your yellow folder. Nice. We've got some buttons for the shadowing.
oh, we have all this stuff.
Yeah, so that button there, see? And then over here, you've got trace.
So what do I do?
Okay, so Ray and Jose, click on the yellow folder with the dirty selection and go up to the top, and the third icon from the left, right up here,
Regenerate all selections?
Yes.
regenerate. What's it say?
Not all boundaries are closed. Select open pockets or close chains.
Okay, well, click OK, see what happens. Okay, again, failed. Alright, so let's click on geometry and go right click, rechain all, left click, and click right there. Then click OK, click OK, regenerate.
Right here?
Okay. Did yours work? Did yours work?
Not like that, but it looks like this.
So somewhere, let's go ahead and click OK. Let's go back to planes, level, 4. You click on one of your lines. That's all collected, eh? I don't know why it's, go ahead and go back to toolpath. Let's go ahead and click the yellow folder and hit the delete button. Let's just recreate it. Click on no.
Oh.
Or yes.
Click on
No,
yes.
that's what we want. That's fine. Okay, let's try it again. Click on toolpath, face, chain, click, and good. And click tool, and click on, yeah, just click one of them. Okay. And let's go to linking real quick. Make these absolutes. Turn this one on. And we got 1 inch, 0.2, 0.2. Okay, click the green. Not all boundaries are closed. Well, it's acting like sometimes if you, it's acting like the lines don't touch. If you draw your 4 lines to drew the toolpath, and you have somewhere where the lines aren't touching, it won't create a proper toolpath. And that's one of the reasons why we use that geometry from level 1 to draw over the top. If you had a double line here, it'll give it problems for chaining it. So I'll have to look at yours a little bit closer here
Yeah.
and see why it's not collecting it. But you can see here that when you click on back plot, you have different icons up here. This one to the right shades it like this, You can turn that off and on. And these two buttons here, the first button gives you the whole path. The second button shades it as it's going. And then,
How do you make yours orange like that?
what do I?
How'd you get yours to be orange like that?
I think yours was orange too, wasn't it?
No, it's just a regular path.